Oh, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from the beautiful metaverse, and more specifically from beautiful Danville, Illinois. And this is Midday with Reverend Don. Welcome. And the time had slightly gotten away from me, but I'm here on time nonetheless. I hope you're having a wonderful Tuesday. And as you know, if you follow Midday with Reverend Don, you can type your comments or questions on whatever platform you happen to be watching on. They'll show up here in my chat room, and we can talk directly. And today I was going to continue some subjects that we've been talking about recently. Today I was going to talk a little more about geometric magic, color magic, maybe the different strengths of different crystals, and we'll see where all we end up going. And this, of course, is in connection to our discussion of the crystal web. And once again, on Thursday, which is the 11th of the month, when people commonly do ceremonies to help to cleanse and strengthen the crystal web, I'm planning to do one. And, these are all things that have connections to how we interact with the crystal web, as well as many other things that we do magically. Geometric magic, I was talking about the other day. Oh, and hello to Christine in the chat room. It's good to see you, Christine. I think a lot of people don't think about geometric magic, even though we use it quite extensively. Hello, Jeanette. Or hello, Janet, in the chat room. It's good to see you. We, in one sense or another, most contemporary magical practitioners use geometric magic all the time. If nothing else than a magic circle, that's geometric magic. There's a reason it's a circle. There are some social reasons it's a circle. I mean, if you think about it, one of the most natural ways for people to assemble is in a circle. In early days around the fire in the center of their camp, or later in their home. So we have that, but also a circle is an energetic structure that aids in amplification. You can see I'm wearing one today. Circle or sphere. And hello to Mary Cavalcante in the chat room. It's good to see you. When we work with a circle, we're trying to amplify those things that we're doing. We're giving them more energy, more power, or work with a sphere. I've talked about how when doing psychic work, it can be helpful to create a sphere of white light as a battery. This is because that will increase everything that that you are doing in terms of its energy and its effectiveness. Circles are very useful that way. Spheres are very useful that way. And probably the single most used geometric shape in magic and for much of human history and life. If you look at many early dwellings, you'll see a lot of use of circles. Certainly not universally, but very heavily used. Squares or rectangles, of course, are the next most commonly used thing. And what do they have to do with? Well, they have to do with stability. A square is based on the number 4, relates to the 4 elements and all those other combinations of 4 that we work with. The 4 seasons, for example, the 4 directions. And consequently, it also is connected to the material world, to stability, to material manifestation. And it can be a very good use as well in magic. When you're trying to do something that's intended to be stable and to last for a long time, using a square, for example, in a crystal grid, or even in the placement of a ritual can be very helpful. Now, when we work with the crystal web, we're most commonly talking about, with geometric magic, how we lay out the crystals. If you lay them out in a square, they're going to draw that energy in and secure it in a very stable way. If you place them in a circle, they're going to amplify it. If you use both, you will get both effects. If you use a triangle, you'll get transformation. Triangles can also be very important in magical use, and we see them a lot through history. triangles and or pyramidions. And the difference is that when we're talking about a triangular shape, it has um, three sides as well as its bottom. When we talk about a pyramidion, it has four sides as well as its bottom. And if you're using a pyramidion, um, it is not only transformation, but transformation in a slower, more stable way. And so when you look at things historically that use this kind of shape, more often they're pyramidions than triangles, um, at least in physical structures. And this is why. Giving it that fourth side makes for a longer lasting result. But you'll also see the triangle used for all sorts of different purposes, including to represent deity, to represent the nature of life. And it is a very sacred, very ancient symbol, connects to the number 3, um, and also to the number 4, depending on whether we're talking about a triangle or a pyramidion. And we use that a lot in what we do. And if you use the triangle, you're working for transformation, growth, expansion in that way. And hello to Diane in the chat room, and hello to Pumpkaboo in the chat room. And Pumpkaboo says, "Hey, Rev Don, love all your work." Thank you, Pumpkaboo. I really appreciate that. I've been talking recently about the fact that it does matter to creators when we see that that people do appreciate our work, that people have been touched by our work, and I always love to hear that. And Christine in the chat room says, "I use pillars so often in my magic. This is also a shape, a geometric shape, and depending how you create it, it can involve several shapes. Um, the plain line shape, of course, is forward movement, um, and can be used for manifestation. But when you create a pillar, it usually has more than just that shape. It also may be a circular pillar, in which case we're using that amplification energy, or a square-sided pillar, in which case we're using that stabilizing energy. And pillars are very important, I think, in magical work. You'll notice that in the things that I have written, I talk about using pillars at the quarters, more or less always, to act um, both as the guardian of the quarter and as an energetic battery. And in my experience, pillars are most valuable, most commonly used as energetic batteries. They generate and project forward energy. So using a lot of pillars can be very beneficial as well, or even just one. When I do psychic work, I often will create 4 pillars of light at the corners of the room, just as I might in a magic circle, although of course it's a different operation, different situation. But again, they're an energetic battery. They will give me more energy to use for the psychic reading rather than having to use my own. I often will also use a sphere of light for the same purpose or a mixture of both. These are ways that we use geometric magic. And these are the main shapes that most people use, though there are many other shapes that you can use in geometric magic. We write about this, I think, in the 2nd degree lessons. You'll find instructions for geometric magic. If not in 2nd degree, in 3rd. It's been a while since I wrote those books. But I think it probably talks about them in both. And the way that we use these geometric shapes shows up in all kinds of different ways. The ways that we shape energy, the ways we create our crystal grids, the ways that we make our sacred tools often rely on these different geometric shapes. And sometimes we don't even realize that aspect of what we're doing, but it's always there, in my opinion. And it is a very important thing. Many people, for example, will use a magic mirror. But have you considered that the shape of your mirror has some effect on how you might use it, how you can benefit from it? And again, a circle will expand the energy that you work with, and a square or a rectangle will tend to stabilize and anchor that energy. And these are different ways that we use geometric energy. Now, I was also going to talk about color magic today, because this is also relevant in working with the crystal web and many other things. And of course, in working with the crystal web, color magic most often shows up through the stones we choose to use. But I've written at some length about the use of stones, and that most people interact with stones through their color frequency. And there are different ways of connecting to stones, and that's one of the reasons that people do interpret their properties differently. They connect to them differently in different disciplines, but usually among people I have known, among disciplines I have studied, it's through the color. And what are the different meanings of color? White is kind of an all-purpose color. It's sometimes associated with the idea of the chaos moment, the unmarked slate, the idea of innocence. But the idea is that white is applicable to all things because it represents um, the state before being focused in one color or another. Though I will point out that how you interpret white and black can depend on whether you're using pigment theory or light theory, because their meanings are exactly opposite in these two thoughts. In pigment theory, white is the absence of all color. In light theory, it's the presence of all color. And I consider that itself to be a very important mystery, how the very same thing can represent opposites at the same time. And I think if you can understand that, and that the reason for this is by approaching it from different levels, that you have a great understanding to apply to everything in life. Now, Pumpkaboo says, it's funny you say that because my altar has 3 large square mirrors. And recently I added a small round mirror to the artifacts, and my feeling of stability has definitely increased recently. And yes, exactly. That is definitely a use of geometric magic, one of the things you can expect from it. If you are surrounded by lots of squares, you're going to be feeling much more stable, much more grounded. If you're surrounded by lots of circles, you're going to feel much more amplified. Coming back to color, again, white, usually in how people use it magically, is approached through color theory and the idea that it is the absence of other influences. And so if you wanted to do something appealing to the idea of setting your course, white might be a good choice. It can be used for literally anything magically. And one of the reasons for this, and I did this in a show a long time ago talking about candle magic. And I remember hearing someone online somewhere having a fit about the idea that white is an all-purpose color for candle magic. And they were totally incensed by this. Which kind of shows that they don't know the history of candle magic, because up until fairly recently, white is the color most commonly available. You couldn't go out and get a purple candle particularly easily, or a yellow candle. Well, yellow was a little more common because the natural color of the wax might be yellow, but they thought of that yellow more as a kind of white. Janet says, I have square mirrors in the bedroom. That should help with stability. It should help with groundedness. In the days before dyed colors in candles were readily available, white was used for everything, or off-white, because it's what they had. And hello to Jason in the chat room. It's good to see you, Jason. It's been a long time since we talked, at least 30 minutes. Good to see you. And therefore, you have to remember, when we're talking about magic historically, people did use what they had. Another thing about candles is that candles were not in wide circulation until just the last few hundred years. They had not been the dominant form of light. Oil lamps were the dominant form of light through much of history. Candles started to come in as long ago as the Roman Empire. the late Roman Empire, but they were very expensive and largely used by the church and the aristocracy, and not by ordinary people who would be doing magic. The kind of candles you might see there, like a rushlight, are not what you would think of candles at all. Um, so candles are actually a fairly modern component in magic compared to the history of magic, and the idea of colored candles even more so. Although there were always certain colors that were available if you had enough money to get them or to make them. But coming back to the magical significance of colors, this is part of the reason that white is used for so many things. It always was. Black, on the other hand, which is the opposite extreme, is usually used for protection. It can also be used for grounding. Um, it is used for creating barriers. It is used for um, reflecting negativity. It's generally used for those purposes, and also sometimes to honor specific deities who have a Cotonic nature, such as Hecate, for example, who might approve of black candles, um, at least in some people's practice. So these are the kind of things you'd use black for. Black is very protective, and if you are looking for, well, I've talked about the use of colors in my career as a psychic reader, and that for a long time I wore black as I'm doing today, though purely by coincidence. But I would wear black to psychic fairs all the time to help me to stay grounded in dealing with so much energy. And I found it very effective up until I came to be more proficient with so much energy. And we're talking often 20 readings a day. That's a lot of energy you're working with. At other times, I wore other colors. We've talked about that before. Talking about the value of other colors here, red is used for vitality, for strength. If you want to strengthen anything, you bring red into it. Just as with clothing, if you're old enough to remember that long ago book, Dress for Success, they talked about red as a power color. It usually is. If you add red visually to something, in most cases, it's going to attract people's attention much more strongly. If you add it magically to something, it's going to up the power of what you're doing. Red is a very strong, very powerful color. Um, the one place it can be more tricky to use is in printed materials. When I worked in the psychic fairs, we were always wondering, what color is most effective for our literature? Red was not. The reason was that the black ink did not show well on a red background. So while the red would catch the attention, it was much harder to read, and that completely counteracted it. But in most things, red is a very powerful color, and if you have red printing on your physical materials, that will be very attention-getting. Red um, is the power color. Orange is a color of creativity. It's also a color of sensuality, sexuality, but also just physical activity in general. If you want more creativity, orange is a very good color to use. Yellow is a good color for projecting yourself into the world, for success, for prosperity and abundance, and things like this. And particularly for interacting with other people, it helps to raise your energy and your effectiveness in working with other people. Yellow is very good for those purposes. Um, Green is commonly used for healing, although some people use other colors for healing. Most colors have an application for healing. But I was taught green is a common color for healing. It's also a common color for prosperity, money, and health. And hello to Tom in the chat room. It's good to see you, Tom. And this is both because green is the color of plants, which are constantly growing and proliferating, and also because traditionally, once money became a thing, it was often made of copper, which turns green very quickly, and therefore the color green was associated with money. This is also why, at least in some parts of the world, when you look at bills, at cash money, as opposed to coin, when you look at paper money as opposed to coin money, you'll often see a preponderance of the color green. This is part of the reason for that, because historically, money commonly ended up being green, at least the money ordinary people were carrying. And these are reasons it's associated with prosperity and also with healing. The color blue, light blue, is associated with um, persuasion, eloquence, communication, and also willpower. If you're looking to increase your willpower, light blue can be a good color to use. If you're looking to increase your persuasiveness, light blue is a good color to use. And I can't help but remember that in the early days of computers, at least my early days of computers, they commonly had blue screens for about a decade. And I've always thought of that as an interesting reflection of their communication with, or their connection with communication. So using light blue for communication, very good. Dark blue connects to psychic abilities. If you're wanting to increase your psychic abilities, dark blue is the color to use, and anything connected to that, including many aspects of magic. Purple is the color of spirituality. If you want to increase your spirituality, your spiritual connection, your connection to your higher self, as we were talking about yesterday, your connection to deity, purple is a good color to use, although there can be other colors depending on what deity you're working with. But purple is generally a good color for spirituality. It's the color of the crown chakra. It's also a good color for some aspects of psychic and magical work. These are the main colors that people use magically. Now, you can also use brown, which is often also connected to grounding and stability. But that generally is the majority of the colors you'll find. People also will use silver and gold, which generally connect to goddess and yin energy and god and yang energy. And also, um, and a gray color is a variation on silver. And this can also be used in a variety of ways itself. And the color gray is a good color for peace, provoking peace in situations, bringing peace to situations. It's a good color for certain sorts of protective work. It has many uses too. So this is a brief overlay of how you use color in magic. And what does this have to do with the crystal web? Well, it has to do with the stones. So what kind of stones? Looking at, Pumpkaboo says in the chat room, blue is also the throat chakra. And yes, all of these colors connect to chakras. Red is the root chakra, orange is the sacral chakra, yellow is the solaris chakra, green is the heart chakra, pale blue is the throat chakra, dark blue the third eye, purple the crown chakra. There are some people who use chakra systems that have either more or less chakras. Their colors may be different. When I was young, a lot of people talked about the idea of there being a thymus chakra, which was teal in color. I would say that it's not so much a different chakra as a different layer of the throat chakra, but that's another program. If you work with stones, as in with the crystal web, how would this apply? Well, if you wanted to use a red stone, carnelian, it's very often used for personal power and authority, for adding strength or energy to any working. Garnet and ruby can be used the same ways. Garnet and ruby also have positive health aspects for anything connected to blood. If you have anything that gives you concern there, these could be good stones to wear to help to increase your energy in those aspects. If you wanted to use orange for creativity, there are a number of orange stones you could use, such as orange calcite. There are certain forms of citrine that would be very good for that. Citrine can range from yellow to orange to brown. There are a number of orange stones you can use. If you want to use yellow, citrine is another possible choice. Topaz is a choice. Amber is a choice. which also comes in a number of different shades, which can have different uses. If you're looking for green, malachite um, is popularly used. There are many other stones you can use for green, including certain kinds of turquoise. I often wear this turquoise ring, which you may have seen, and I don't know if you can exactly see, but it's green. Has a little bit of blue in it. People commonly think of turquoise as blue, but it can be closer to green. That particular turquoise is from the Fox mine, which had that particular coloring. If you wanted to use dark blue, the classic stone is lapis lazuli, which is considered very psychic, but also sodalite. Um, and I suppose sapphire would be good for that. Blue sapphire, of course. We have one of those in here. But of course, it's not right in my line of vision because that would be too easy. Oh, there it is. Sapphire. Very good. And Janet says, my birthstone is garnet, but rare because it has a ruby inside of it. I'm assuming we're referring to a particular stone. That sounds quite lovely. And if you wanted to use purple energy through stones, amethyst, of course, is the classic stone, but certainly not the only one. And if you wanted to use white, there's moonstone, there's pearl, there are howlite, a variety of white stones. And for black, we have things like obsidian. See if I can get this focused the right way. Hematite. Now, hematite is a black stone, but it's a reflective black stone, like a mirror, and it's particularly used for protection, though it has other purposes as well. So these are different ways that color magic applies to stones, that the meaning of stones connects back to those colors. And then, when we're working with the stones, we go back to our geometric shapes. And the different shapes that your stones are in can also affect how you might want to use them. Now, just because they're in a certain shape and a certain color doesn't mean that's the only way they can be used, but it means it's their natural quality. And so, for example, we have this gold stone in an oval shape, which is a variation on the circle. And goldstone, which is a form of orange stone, and so it would connect to creativity, but it also connects to prosperity because of the way that it is created. This is a synthetic stone, but it's a very old synthetic stone, very commonly used for prosperity. My mother used a lot of goldstone and was always prosperous. And this shape would be for amplification of that. And hello to Donna in the chat room. Donna says, greetings from Minnesota. And Mary says, my favorite is lapis lazuli. Here we have a turquoise in a rectangular shape, which would be a variation on the square, good for grounding and stabilizing. So these are some of the things to consider if you're wanting to lay out a crystal grid to work with the crystal web, or in general using geometric magic and color magic. These are the things to think about. And Janet says, I just recently learned how to ground around crystals because the energy from them was too much. Yes, indeed. That is one of the things to consider when working with crystals. They do create a lot of energy. And I was talking earlier about how when I was doing psychic fairs early in my career, because there was so much energy from all the readings I was doing and all of the ones going on around me as well, in addition to constantly grounding, I would often wear black for purposes of stabilizing and grounding. And there are lots of things that one can do to help with that. But with that, I see we've come to the end of our half hour. I want to thank you for joining me. I love spending this time with you. I love getting to talk to you in the chat room. I hope that you enjoy the program. And let us close with our prayer, as we commonly do. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we ask you to help us to attune to the universe through all the means that are around us. whether color or shape or stone, and to ease our passage through life, through attunement to the natural energies of the universe. And though we know that there are times that we must head in different directions, help us to use the energies of the universe to ease our way whenever possible. Beloved Mother Goddess, beloved Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you for your presence. And knowing you are always with us, but from respect, we thank you for your presence here today. May you be blessed now and always. May you be blessed now and always, and I'll see you tomorrow. Have a lovely day.